everyone, and welcome to another live session with Emirates MBD. We hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and most importantly, socially responsible. So, as we've done in the past few weeks, we're bringing you a series of live sessions that will help you create your brand and find opportunities to build your career and get the job you always wanted. So, today's session is our sixth episode of the Career Management series that's led by Shane Phillips, who is the CEO of the management consultancy, the Phillips Group. So Shane is also the author of the book, Find Your Dream Job, and he's previously hosted a TV show and a live radio show called Eye on Careers on Dubai Eye 103.8. So the previous episodes were all about finding your vision, how to work around your energy and motivation, how to set up an interview with someone, how to then ace the job interview, and how to polish your CV and your social media profile. So basically all of the right tools for building the brand and the job that you always wanted. So just as a reminder, if you haven't got a chance to actually view those episodes, you can always find them on our IGTV. So on this episode today, Shane joins us again as we talk about salary negotiation. So Shane, thank you so much for joining us once again. And we'd like to ask you, what do you think are the basics that one needs to follow when talking about salary negotiations?
Well, I think number one, you need to know how much are you worth. And a lot of people struggle with this question. It's something that we can tackle today. Number two, I think you need to have a negotiation strategy. So when you're going into the engagement, you're not kind of cut off balance where you don't know if you should do the opening move, if you should let them make the opening move. You're kind of like a deer in headlights. Some candidates they're not used to the natural cadence of a negotiation. So get a strategy, get ready, and understand whether you're taking first mover advantage or you're going to relinquish it. What's your floor? What's your ceiling? And then the third piece is just getting familiar and getting ready to deal with the regular objections or the irregular battering of attacks that your opponent will throw at you. Being able to answer or practice answering questions like, tell me what you're earning now. Oh, sorry, this is, it's tight times and we can't really afford any more money for you. Oh, sorry, we're going to have to fly you economy. There's no business class flights. Or sorry, negative, you're not getting the golf membership. Well, how do we flip all these around and squeeze a little bit more money, a little bit more compensation, a little bit more extras out of the deal? And I think those are the fundamentals. And finally is really just what's kind of good negotiation 101, basic simple things like having a fallback position, having your best alternative to the negotiated agreement ready, and putting in some of the core techniques such as anchoring, framing, reciprocity. So this is all things that we're going to talk about today. And I've really tried to make sure that the slides are more focused on tactics than conceptual kind of strategies. So I want you to be able to walk away from the session with tangible, tactical things that you can use immediately. So if you have a salary negotiation in an hour and a half, you will be able to use some of the things that we teach you here immediately as soon as you're done.
Yeah, and I think this topic in specific is super sensitive and people don't really know how to tackle it or how to even start it. So especially in today's market or the market in general, how do you start salary negotiation? How can you ask for something? For example, if you got a job offer and you got an X package, how can you ask for more or for less, or what can you expect?
Oh, I think if you immediately get an offer and you're not happy with it, I think number one is you need to reframe the situation in the context of the goals of the organization. So, and I think it also makes a difference in understanding, are you dealing with the business unit head, or you're dealing with someone who's an extension of HR, or you're dealing with a recruiter who's outside of the organization. This will make it easier or more difficult for you to overcome the hurdle if you feel that you're being shortchanged or you're being given the short end of the stick. So number one, say the employer says, look, hey, we can't really meet your salary band. So here's, for example, if you go to slide 8, I have an example of that where they say, look, sorry, we can't meet your salary requirements. This is the best we can offer you. So one easy way is you can say, look, if you can't meet my immediate requirements, can you give me a salary review in 6 months? So that's something. I don't know if I froze or if you're still picking me up here. Am I having
Perhaps our viewer can still see us even if there's a technical glitch.
Yeah. Okay. So you can then vie for having a salary review in 6 months, and then the person says, look, we really can't waver on this. Then you can start going for other extras, which will give you the net cash deal of still being in the right vicinity. So you might say, let me just try to switch the. So you might ask for. Are we okay there, or am I back? I feel like I've been lost.
You're back.
Okay.
You're back. Don't worry about it.
Okay, yeah. Let me just recap quickly. So they say, look, we can't meet your salary requirements, as you said. Number one, ask for a 6-month salary review. In 6 months, can we review this? And so then you can hopefully lock in a raise within 6 months if you're performing well. 2, you can start looking for buckets outside of the comp bucket and go into, because there's budgets that are set. So our salary budgets are set. We can't exceed those. But what about your learning and development budget? So can you pay for my executive MBA? Can you pay for my training program? I really want to go on this course. So that might be a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, or even if it's a proper MBA, it could be up to $100,000 extra you're putting in your package. Mm-hmm. Then you could ask for training. And if not, then you could maybe ask for flexi hours or whatever it is. Try to put those extras in there. That's one way to go about it. The second way that you can really start to tackle this, where you say, look, we can't meet your salary requirements. Really tie it to what the business requirement is. So the person says that I want to open in Saudi Arabia. Then you might say, well, look, if you want to open, you need these 6-7 relationships. If you don't want to pay my salary to get it, there's maybe 4 other people in the market. Am I locked up still? Am I coming through all right, or I'm okay? Okay, so you can say, look, there's only 4 other people in the market who could do this job. They are, Mark Andrews, Mohammed Abdul, blah, 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 blah. And you say these are the 4 people, and they're each one making 200 or 250. So actually, I would be your cheapest option from the current market. If you want to go in this salary bracket, you're looking at candidates and start name and shaming those candidates and say, yeah, you could hire Mike from XYZ company to do this, but he's not going to have those relationships that, I would have, or the other candidates, which I mentioned, have, that can make this happen for you. So yes, there is a little bit of a pay for performance that you need to look at, and then just see how they say it. So lots of times you can't take things at face value in the negotiation. What I always say is you have 2 24-hour periods that you can play with, which means that if somebody makes you an offer, you can counter offer that. And if you do that twice over 2 24-hour periods, so they send it to you, you make a counter offer, you wait 24 hours, they come back to you, you make another counter offer and wait another 24 hours. At that point, I don't think you should be at risk of losing that deal, and you've at least pushed back. So that was, to your question, where you're saying, hey, right out of the gates, somebody just refuses. So there's a few quick tactics that you can move on. The other option that you can also go for when they say, hey, we can't actually move this because the salary band. So this is an 11B, and in order to meet that salary band, you'd have to be a 10A. And then you can ask them, well, why don't you see if you can move up the band? Now you're playing it a bit more risky, because if they have to go back and meet with HR, or they might need a board sign off to change the band, once it goes up to the higher ups, one of the board members might look at the role and say, oh, I know a great person from my last bank that I was working at who could do that job, and they basically bump you out of the role. So you do play a bit of a risk when you try to bump up the pay band, but that's another technique that you can also use.
Mm-hmm. So what if we get a job offer that's decent and we're okay to accept it? Do you think we should still negotiate?
Absolutely. Well, this depends. If you're following my process, absolutely. But if you're following my process, you would have a fallback position. You would have created multiple offers. You would have interviewed with companies who are a bit smaller in size. So you would have a multitude of options. For somebody who is not interviewing anywhere else, has no other offers, is currently unemployed, and not getting this job would result in them becoming homeless or defaulting on their mortgage, then the answer would be no. You are not actually doing yourself a very good service if you don't follow negotiation 101 strategies and tactics, which is what drives your value, which is the value of anything, which is your supply and demand curve. If I'm selling, this beautiful mint green coffee cup, if I'm the only person in the world who sells mint green coffee cups, I could actually charge quite a premium. But if there's 1,000 people on my street who sell the exact same coffee cup, very quickly I'll have to sell probably below cost just to get rid of my inventory and get out of the coffee cup business. So you end up getting a steal of a deal. So you have to understand that it's supply and demand curve that we're dealing with, simple economics. And as you go in for as you go into interview, the corporation or the company or the business has created a system to make sure that there's multiple sellers and only one buyer, them. And they want to create a system, and a lot of times you'll feel the employer threaten you by saying, oh, by the way, we have like 5-6 other candidates. You are our favorite, but we really have seen a lot of people applying for this job. So, I think if you want this, you need to move quickly. Now, that's a threat. And what they're doing is they're trying to push the supply and demand curve against you. And so you want to be aware of that, counteract that, make sure you have to go into, if you are in a position where you're in transition, or you're leaving your job, or you're moving into a new job, you have to put this as one of your lodestars, that I need to get multiple offers. If you're not getting multiple offers, you most likely will not be able to trade at a premium. It'll be difficult for you to trade at a premium. It can still happen, but you're just making it more difficult. And the whole purpose of your salary negotiation is to make sure that you're trading at a premium, or you're trading above market. Unless you feel your skill set is below market, or you're average or below market, then don't worry about it and accept the below average salary. But if you're a top performer and you're performing well, then I think you need to push for that, get multiple offers. And so when you have multiple offers, immediately the rule of thumb is never accept the first offer, number one. Number two, I have had some candidates where they're in the meeting and the employer says, well, listen, Mrs. Tala, we'd love to hire you. Here's your offer, and pass it across the table. And the person just took it and signed it, right there in the meeting. Well, I don't know if that helps your personal brand. You want to also make the employer feel like they chased you a little bit, and that you're cautious, you're not hasty, you're meditated, you're premeditated, you have your I's crossed and your T's crossed and your I's dotted. You don't want to dot your T's. That won't work out well.
I've got another question talking about uncomfortable situations that you can get in an interview. So, for example, if your employer, future employer, is asking you, tell me how much are you earning now? People feel a little bit intimidated by this question. They don't really know how to tackle it. So, what's your advice for them?
Yes, this, if you could go to slide 6, I'll talk about that there. This is something that's really frustrating to me because I feel that you have a lot of companies that take advantage of this situation where somebody is coming in to interview to get competitive intelligence about about one of their competitors, when they don't have any intention of hiring you. So they start to ask you, tell me, what are you earning now? When they're really collecting private information about the company. It's not really it's not really their business.
Mission, kind of. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. You can still hear me, okay? I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can keep going.
Okay. So tell me what you're earning now. So if it's your first interview, it's not really any of their business. It's really, if you've been through 6 or 7 or 8 interviews and now they're really at a time where like, hey, we're thinking of making you an offer. We may be interested that this, will become very serious. Tell me what you're earning now. Let's get an idea of where that is. Then fine. Yes, I think you need to get into the numbers. Now, how you get into the numbers is another discussion. And, would you go and tell them exactly what you're earning now? Does that help you? And if we go back to my coffee cup, if I tell you, oh, Mrs. Tala, why don't you buy my coffee cup? By the way, I got it in China. Let's just say I got it wherever I bought it. And I bought it for 50 cents. Okay. So say I bought this for 50 cents. By the way, I'll sell it to you for $25. How does that sound? No, you're not going to want to pay $25 when you know that I got it for 50 cents or 25 cents.
Yeah.
So at the same point, when you're coming into your salary negotiation, if you start telling them what you're earning now, you're blowing your opportunity to get a premium because nobody's going to pay you 100% premium. And this dialogue will take place because when they go to offer, behind closed doors, the board or whoever the remuneration committee is, they'll say, well, we're not going to give them 100% lift. We're not going to give them a 40% lift. We'll give them a 15% lift, or we'll give them a 10% or an 8%.
Yeah.
So
does it, question here, does it depend on who's asking the question? If it's someone from the HR or, for example, the head of the department, does it really matter or it doesn't at this point?
For me, I would just put a smile on my face and I would say, whoever it is, oh, that's great. You want to discuss my salary. Are we at that point in the process where you'd like to make me an offer? Now okay. I'm being a bit coy and I'm turning it around because, you would only, and I think it's the same thing. Like if you walk into a car dealership and you walk in, you say, well, how much is this Mercedes SLS? And then if the salesperson says, oh, that's great. You definitely you came in to buy today, is it? You came in to buy a car today. That's a fair question. That is a fair question. And the person says, yes, I came in to buy. I want to know how much this is. Or the person you might back off and say, no, I'm just window shopping. This is actually my dream car. I actually can't afford it, but I was just wondering if you could tell me. And then the person, that dialogue, that's what you need to test. Now, if it's the more junior the person is, the more likely they're just getting information out of you. And this is not fair, and it's not public information. Just as you don't want your salary pushed all over the market, your employer also does not want to publicize their incentive and compensation and benefit program. This is competitive intelligence. This is one of the tools we're using to get a competitive edge in the market. We don't want our competitors knowing what we're paying and everything else. Of course, they're going to find out, but don't make it easy for them. So I think that's a nice, easy thing to say is, hey, are we at that point of the program where you definitely like to make me an offer? Then the person will say, no, Shane, I have a process to complete. I need to know what you're making now or we can't move forward. And then you could say, well, I would love to tell you what I'm making now, but I just don't feel that it's relevant because that's why I came to the table, because I just did my MBA, I did my CPA, I did my CFA, I did my CIMA, and I got all these qualifications, and no matter what I do, my employer does not give me a raise or doesn't get me paid. So I want to get paid what a reasonable rate is for my skill set in the market, and that's why I've come here. Can you tell me what your salary band for the position is? Now look at what's happening here is first person who shows their numbers loses. I want to know what your salary band is so I can be at the top of the salary band and get a premium. The other person, the recruiter, wants to know how much you're earning so I can get you at a discount and give you what's the bare minimum that I can offer you to entice you to move and take the job. That is the equation and the question that the recruiter is trying to figure out.
So from one end, the recruiter who actually wants to find out how much you're earning, and you have the other side of the equation, which is you trying to figure out how much more premium you can add to your expected salary. You can sort of say.
Yes, and if you were using our course, like the salary negotiation course, you would already figure that out. So generally, you should already know what the salary band is for the employer before you get onto the deal table. If you don't know, you're making a tough job harder for yourself. So, but as you said, if you don't know, then yes, then I'm going to be sitting down and I'm going to be trying to figure out what the salary band is. Now, when you ask them what the salary band is, if you're dealing with someone who's not a trained negotiator, they might say, oh yeah, well, yeah, our salary band for this role is 55 to 65. Well, right away, now you know that this person's not a trained negotiator. So you probably, if you are a trained negotiator, you might be a little bit more brazen, feeling like you might be able to even get a little bit more out of the deal. And, because the person's giving you this information, which they shouldn't be giving you. The second thing is you should never talk in a salary band. Like as soon as the other thing is that when someone says, oh yeah, the salary band is 55 to 65, that's another indication that you're dealing with someone who doesn't know how to negotiate, because a band it's a ridiculous thing to say. Because if I say, oh, if you ask me how much is this cup, and then I say, oh, the cup is, $15 to $25, nobody in their right mind is going to go, oh, well, I'll take it for $25. No, you wouldn't say that. Of course, you're going to say, fine, I'll take it for 12. Why don't you, you'll go at the band and you'll go below. So these are a couple indications as well that I'm just telling you when you're dealing with the person to pick up. Are they a trained negotiator? Are they not a trained negotiator? So the most likely response you'll get is like, look, we aim to be competitive. Now, you really need to tell me what you're earning now or we can't move forward. And at that point, you're also learning a lot about the organization and their culture. And you might also want to be asking like, hey, do I want to be working with these people? Because they're obviously, they're a little bit of a bulldozer type of attitude and they're pushing you. And at the end of the day, it's absolutely ridiculous to think that somebody, you have your CEO, you have your business unit heads who are running your bank. You're trying to tell me that they don't know how much an RM earns or how much, your chief marketing officer doesn't know how much a brand officer earns, or you're trying to tell me that I'm running a search firm and I don't know what all the key positions in the industry were there. Of course, they know what the industry standards are when you're dealing with someone who has 30 years experience. So this question, again, in my mind, is irrelevant. But again, they're going to push you on this. So it just drives home the fact that they're pumping you for information. What's the relevant question? I'll get to that after, but let's just continue to deal with the objection you're asking. So then I would then depersonalize. One of the things that you want to do in your negotiation is depersonalize it and always try to keep a step back or a step away, because you don't want it to get too emotional or you don't want to have any kind of clash like that. So when he says, look, Shane, I don't have time for this. I've got another call in 20 minutes. I need to know what you're making now. I want to send this report off to the chairman. Just stop messing around. Then I would say, oh, that's great news. I totally understand. By the way, I just interviewed with Siemens and GE. They're hiring for the exact same position. And actually, GE's making me an offer for $200,000. That's really what I was looking at, the 200 plus range. I'm sure, because personally, you're my first choice. I way rather work with Emirates MBD than anyone else. But I imagine you must be in the same salary bracket. What's your salary bracket for the role? Now, I very clearly answered this question. Not really, but I've given him the number. Like, look, if you're under 200, obviously you know that this deal is not going to fly. So that's how you would deal with it. And again, if you're not getting multiple offers, you're then going to get pushed into what? Then you would have to say, look, then the person says, look, Shane, I don't care what Siemens is doing. I need to know, this is the last time I'm asking this question. I need to know what you're earning now. And you say, okay, look, I would move for 215,000. That's what I'm really looking at. Does that sound reasonable to you? Now the person's like, I'm going to need your pay stub. You're like, fine. If you want to make me an offer at that point, I will relinquish my pay stub. But I'll tell you right now, I'm not going for less than 215. So now you're being pushed back to your salary strategy. What is your opening move? So some people who are really well educated on the market, they might just throw their opening move right out of the gates. So sometimes you'll have this with a candidate when you call them up for a role, and you call the head of compliance from Hong Kong, and for one of the big banks, and he's like, listen, Shane, I'm not moving unless you're paying me more than 600. I make $600,000 a year plus bonus. So if you're not north of that, this conversation's over. And okay, fine. He's all of a sudden relinquished his thing. So now I might purposely come in at 550 just to test how real that is. If he hangs up on me, I know that it was the real line. But the thing is that you also, from the recruiter side, they feel like you can't actually blow the deal, because if I call the head of compliance up and he says I want 600 and I say 550 and he hangs up on me, I call him back tomorrow and say, listen, I got more money in the deal for you. Well, he's going to be back on the table. So also be aware that the skilled negotiator will really put a lot of pressure on you to drop on price. So be psychologically prepared for that. That's a little background on how to answer that question. I don't know if that helps.
Absolutely, it definitely helps. I have another question, which is following that actually. How do you get a bit extras? So for example, usually when you get a package, sometimes they tell you, for example, you have an executive club membership, or other perks that you could get with your offer. So how could you kind of negotiate for that, or push the limit a bit so that you can get maximum out of it?
So I think one of the things you can do is, if you create a PowerPoint or you create a business plan, a lot of people don't do this. They come into the interview and they come in raw. True. And I'm a big believer in bringing in props. If you have pictures with your ex-clients, oh, hey, here, by the way, this is me at the ruler's office. We did this project. Oh, here's me with da-da-da-da-da. And by the way, this is my plan. You can always say, look, I put a couple slides together on what I would do if I was in this role, and if I got the job, what I would want to do. And it's very rare, unless you're, if you're in a panel interview with the ministers, or it's like a very, very formal process, then of course you may not get the chance. But most of the people, they'll be like, yeah, sure, let's see what you did, because nobody does it. And then in there, you start putting, okay, if you're an avid golfer, by the way, I think it would be great if we had 2 golf tournaments for our core clients a year. By the way, do you know health and fitness is really a core thing? Why don't we have, during the summer month, we run a marketing theme beach fitness? By the way, I really think I need to be at XYZ beach, beach club in order for me to, stay in shape. And this is where I meet a lot of my clients. By the way, I saw that on flights under 4 hours, you guys have it that we fly economy. Well, I just want you to know that, I fly to Bahrain, I fly business. Why? Because I actually signed 2 of my deals in the business class lounge, flying over there. So, it's a small amount where you're only paying an extra 2,000 dirhams or something for the flight, but I'm going to bringing you those 3 deals is going to equal, 500,000 extra net profit into the package. So I tie my extras to the KPIs, objectives of the organization. Sure. And never push it like on myself. Some people, this is one thing that you should never do, which is they say no. They'll, some people, they're very senior, or they have a short patience, and they'll say, look, I don't fly economy, so I'm not interested. Don't ever say no. Just push the ball along down the field and say, look, this is this is what I find really attractive because it's going to allow me to perform better. I had one candidate and he said, look, I don't want a car and driver. Personally, I prefer to drive. I don't trust drivers, but I used a driver the last 2 years. My productivity has increased by 50% because as the CEO of the company, I have to visit customers. And if I'm not visiting at least 1 or 2 customers a day, then I'm losing touch with the market. And when you go and visit a customer, that means at least I'm spending 1 to 2 hours in the car in traffic. So I'm losing productivity by driving. So I need to have a driver. It's a productivity thing. And then the client was like, yeah, give him a driver. In fact, I'll take a driver, and it makes more sense. And so that's how you put your extras in, is really like, give me this, I'm going to give you that. Give me this much, I'm giving you that much.
So what are the 3 don't do's then, if there are?
Yeah, the first is, well, the one I just said was, don't say no. Never say no. So if someone says, Shane, I want you to come down here and clean out my stable, because my horse has made a mess. Well, my gut reaction might be to say, hell no. But that's not actually the real answer, because if you say, Shane, I'm going to give you $20 million if you clean my stable, I'll be down there, shining it up. It will be bristling clean within 5 minutes. So the truth is, there's no such thing as no. Everything has a condition. Under any condition, there's all kinds of things that people will do. So never say no. You're just closing the door. The other thing is, don't ask if this item is negotiable. The second that you hear someone say that, again, you know that they're not a trained negotiator, because you would try to negotiate it and then the person will say no, and then that's not negotiable. Some items are non-negotiable, some are, but you find out by trying to negotiate them. You never ask by asking, because a lot of people will have a negotiable item and then you ask and they'll say no, just for that, because they don't want to give up any ground. And then the third point is, don't accept the first offer, which we already talked about. And I would caution people, as they say, a little bit of information is dangerous. So somebody who's just watching this and picks up on that point, if you don't have the other pieces like your fallback position and your back nut, and you can go to our website, ownmycareer.com, and we can hook you up with what you need to know. But if you don't have the other pieces set up, you should not follow that advice. If you're following the salary negotiation 101 strategies, then yes, don't accept the first offer, push for it. I actually had if I can tell one quick story, I was working with a troubled teenager and, trying to do my community service, and he gets his job at the call center and he negotiated a sign-on bonus because he was driving around with me and he was listening to me, and, I was giving him kind of teaching him how to do a salary negotiation, and he got a 3,000 dirham. It wasn't much. It's just a 3,000 dirham sign-on bonus. But because he asked, they gave him an offer and he came back and negotiated, and he negotiated the sign-on bonus, and it always just blew my mind. So these techniques work for every level of person.
So I want to go back to one of the points that you've mentioned about salary negotiation, where the recruiter is possibly asking for, how much you're earning and how you can negotiate back as well. What happens in the case, or what advice do you give our followers today for a recruiter that gets a bit agitated, stressed, edgy? How do you respond to that? I mean, how can you maintain your cool and still be able to negotiate very fairly?
Yes. So you have to stay calm. It's very difficult when you're dealing with your own salary, because one, you don't want to blow the deal. Two, exactly. You take it personally, because if you say you're worth 100,000 and you're earning currently 100,000 and you come to the job and you want 120, and I'm just going to mess with you and I'm opening at 80,000 because, hey, some people, they're about to get terminated, their business is getting shut down, they're going to take it, they're desperate. So some employers will be taking advantage of that. You feel insulted because now I've insulted your sense of self-worth. It's not about your salary. It's about your worth as a human being, and you get edgy. And it's like, whoa, so you have to take that step back. And the other thing is when you go to that, if you go to slide 6, one of the core things is that you're giving them information. So, for example, although I'm not telling them, like if you look at point 6 where the person says, tell me what you're earning now, you have to tell me seriously. Like here in the mock-up, we're trying to capture that the employer is getting agitated. So you want to give them information. Hey, I'm interviewing with Siemens, I'm interviewing with GE, their salary bands for the role is 200. And now I'm giving you information. So you can't be standoffish. You have to be charming, you have to be charismatic, you have to be warm, you have to be friendly, and push into it. And you also have to read the person. And I had one candidate, she's going in actually for a chief marketing officer role, and she went in to meet with the chairman of the company, and the head of talent acquisition cut her off in the lobby. Like, when you go to the chairman's office, they usually like have these big spaces or whatever. So he cuts her off and he's like, what are you earning now? And she's like, well, I think it's too early for that. He's like, if you don't tell me what you're earning now, you just turn around and go home. You're not going to meet the chairman. And so it's a big value statement about what it's going to be like to work there, where you have this kind of bully catching you in the hall and cutting you off before you meet the chairman. So there's 2 reads there. One is, what's the culture of the organization? Are they classy, elegant, friendly organization where, hey, I can tell you're not comfortable talking about salary. Let's have that at another person, because that says a lot about your values. Or do I see that you're uncomfortable and now I'm going to take advantage, I'm going to bully you more? So one is the culture you want. 2, you can also read if the person's really getting agitated, then you drop back to taking first mover advantage. I'm going to open high. So if I'm going to accept 200,000, I'll say, yeah, what I would move for is 215. Well, we need to know what you're earning now. You could clearly say, like, I'm happy to relinquish my salary details when we're at the stage we're making an offer. I'm not comfortable initial stages broadcasting my salary details all over the market. So this is an introduction. This is the first time I'm meeting you. I'm not comfortable giving my salary information. You could say that. That might upset the person. Or you make the call, I'm going to relinquish it. I wouldn't. I had a lady from Kenya, and she came to me, and she was very upset. She was saying, look, because I'm from Kenya, the salaries are very low. They asked me what I was making in Kenya, and right away, I can't even make a living wage because the way they're just taking my shirt off my back. And I said, look, stop tell them that what you're earning now is totally irrelevant. What's important is what I will move for. And if you're not able to meet what I'm about to move for, then why are we talking? And I even tell that to clients, because I'll have a client say, Shane, this is my salary band for the role. I said, I don't care what your salary band is. What it is what do you want to accomplish? You want to climb Mount Everest? You need a Sherpa to take you up the mountain? You need to drop $100,000. You want to discount it? Okay, fine. You want to spend $20,000 to go up Mount Everest? You're going to have a Sherpa who's never led an expedition before. Do you want to take that risk with your life? Your option. So I don't care. I don't care what your budget is to climb Mount Everest. I'll tell you right now. You want an experienced Sherpa organization to take you up? You're spending $100,000. You want kind of real questionable experience? 20. You got less than 20. You're not going up. Simple as that. So why do I care about your budget? Pardon?
So then professional negotiators definitely have a plan, or they have a strategy that they put in place. It's right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I would assume, yeah.
Yeah,
then
so
to do the same, I'm guessing.
I would say this is a really good idea. So if you look at slide 14, I lay out kind of the basic template for a salary negotiation.
Okay. Yeah.
And what you want to list out are what are your priorities. And the reason why you write it out is because it's emotional. This is actually 2 slides. So there's a second part to this template. It couldn't all fit on. And I think even now you probably can't even read it because the text, it looks like it might be a bit too small for you. Sorry for that.
I'm hoping the readers could actually read it.
I don't think they could. So number 1 is your priorities. What are your priorities? So in different stages, so when we're earlier career, you're looking at training and development. You want to work under someone who really knows what they're doing. You want to grow. As you get older, education allowance might be important for you. Flexi hours might be important for you. As you get into the twilight of your career, you're really looking at cashing out. You really want to make sure that you have your incentives, your net profit share, your ESOPs, your LTIPs, your kickbacks, all of those equity sharing devices. You want all of that stuff. So those are your priorities. And then on the other side of the coin, you want to list out what are the priorities for your employer. So, are they looking at greenfield expansion? Are they breaking into new markets, or are they a mature business and they want to optimize? They want to cost control. They want to drive peak performance. So, are they trying to diversify? Are they looking at obsolete product lines? They need to innovate to make new pieces. Are they under? So, what are the priorities of your employer? If it's a publicly listed company, you can get this easily. If it's not a publicly listed company, you need to meet with ex-employees of that company. So if somebody used to work at, say, for example, somebody used to work at Emirates MBD. So say Rick Pudner, for example, he was your old CEO. He's left. He's now doing fintechs and stuff. Take Rick Pudner out for a coffee. You're going to find out a lot about Emirates MBD. So, not maybe that's too close of a home example, but what you want to do is take ex-employees and chat with them. So that's understanding the priorities. The next one you want to do is what's your fallback position in your negotiation strategy sheet. If it's like, hey, I'm gonna be deported if I don't get a job in the next 30 days, you better sign the deal. It's gonna change. So fix your fallback position. The easiest fallback position you can get is go down to one of the free zones, register a company, get a nice business card, throw up a website, and next thing you know, you're a consultant. So that's your fallback position. You run your own business. 2, go to companies that are so small you never work for them. Because right now, for example, some of the bigger banks might be laying people off. Well, small fintech companies, fintech startups, crowdfunding platforms, some of these other banks, they'll be hiring. So you want to go for those. What's the fallback position of the employer? This is a really interesting priority piece that if you understand, you will really use to your advantage in the negotiation. You want to know what the fallback position is of your opponent. You never want your opponent to know your fallback position. If I know that, hey, the board is going to pull the plug on the Saudi operation if they do not present a GM for the Saudi business within the next 3 months, and there's only one other candidate, and the other candidate's not really interested. Now I know that you're in hot water, and the cost of the negotiation is something that you need to put into the equation, which is for every day that this deal is not closed, who is suffering. So for example, in an extreme case, you look at an oil and gas company, they have an oil leak underwater. There's only a handful of subsea organizations that can go down there and fix the leak. So every day that they don't close that oil leak, they have huge costs. So there's so I would use that against you. The cost of negotiation is, and if it's me who's unemployed and I have mortgage payments and school payments, so now I am, as a candidate, I'm bearing the brunt of the cost of negotiation. So who has the cost of negotiation? What's your fallback position, and how do those play out? Then you want to ask yourself, what's the minimum price? What's the absolute? What's my floor? Anything below this, I will not accept. And your minimum price is actually intimately tied to your fallback position, or what they call in professional negotiating circles, your best alternative to the negotiated agreement is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but you could just say, if I don't get the job, what happens? So your minimum price will be there. And then you have your target price, which is what you want, what you would love to have your job is. Now, the minimum price and the target price are reversed for the employer. So their minimum is your ceiling, and their target is your floor. See how they flip. And so for example, I want to get 250, and you're like, I wouldn't pay more than 225. Any candidate who wants more than 225, take them off the list. So that's important information to know. So I want to come in at 230, let you talk me down to 225, and I take the deal at the top of the band. if I'm the recruiter, I will open at my floor. So if I know, for example, the position is 200 to 225, I'll open at 190. I'll make you work just to get the floor, just to get the minimum. So what's your target price? And then what are your strengths? So far we'll list what are our priorities: training, maximize cash, flexi hours. What's your fallback position? If I don't get this job, what will I do? What's your minimum price? What's the minimum I'll take the job for? What's your target price, i.e. what's my dream number? And visualize that number, manifest it. And then what are my strengths? What are my main USPs? What make me better at this job than anyone else? Did I freeze again, or? Yeah, I'm okay.
No, we're all good. Shane, okay. As in every episode, we want to give our viewers top three negotiation skill techniques. What are they? If we have to summarize them just into 3 points, what would they be?
Okay, your top three. If I could just go back on the strategy sheet, because actually slide 15 I didn't finish. If I could just capstone that before we move on, which is slide 15, and then you want to list after the target price is what's your weakness, because as a professional recruiter, I'm going to discount you on your weakness. I'll say, look, you've never worked in Dubai. It's going to be your first time. I'm giving you your Dubai experience. You need to take a premium for that. You need to take a hit for that. And then you want to do the reverse on your potential employer. What's their weakness? Hey, do they have a lawsuit? Do they have a patent that's about to expire? Do they have some people what's the risk premium? Use that against them. And then what's your potential concessions? What are things you're happy to give up? I.e., hey, I don't have any kids. You're not going to have to pay education allowance with me. You should take that actually net. Well, it looks like I'm more expensive. I'm actually cheaper than the other candidate. Opening move. Be ready with your opening move. So if they put you under pressure, like you said, what do you do with that recruiter who's really getting edgy? Hey, I've already practiced my opening move. I'm going to come in 10% higher than the band. You're saying 225. I'm going to come in at 240. So those are just I just want to capstone off the strategy sheet. So 3 techniques that you can use. Number 1 is framing. So how do you frame the discussion? So I will come in and I will say to you, wow, I can't believe it. It's a global marketplace. We're recruiting. Do you know that 73% of millennials are now finding their job on social media? That hiring talent is so complicated, where search consultants actually felt like we were going to be made redundant or made extinct. We're actually in more demand than ever because it's so complex now. How do you get that top performer? What kind of online testing can you do? How do we use big data? There's so many things. It's amazing. I never even thought. I was actually nervous 24 months ago that I'd be extinct. We've gotten more job offers I've ever seen in my life. Talent must be a real pressure point for you. Now, I'm just having a chit chat like, hey, we're having a coffee, but I'm framing it that, hey, I am expensive. You need to pay. And there's a huge value. There's a huge demand. You need the buzz of demand. And the reverse, the recruiter will do the reverse. They'll call you up and they'll say, oh my God, can you believe how bad it is? There is so much layoffs. There's consolidation. There's never been more candidates than ever in the market. How are you doing? How long have you been looking for a job? Now, it looks like an innocent conversation. It's not. That person is framing you. They're putting you psychologically in a state that you will take a discount. Don't let them do that. Don't let them do that. And anchoring is really, so what happens when you're dealing with somebody who's not a trained negotiator? They'll say things like, well, let them make the offer and I'll review it. Well, now what you're really saying is you don't know what you're worth. You want them to make an offer and you can see what it is. So you should immediately. Pardon?
This is going to be my next question about how do you know your worth? Because I think it's important for everybody entering the job market or everybody going into a job, knowing exactly how much they're worth in the market.
Yes, absolutely. So let me I'll answer that. But so anchoring is just make sure you open high, anchor your value high. So like if you walk into the Mercedes dealership, you won't see the smart car, which is probably a great seller for them. It's not the cheapest. Let's say it's the price tag of the smart car is lower than the Gullwing SLS. but in the window is the Gullwing SLS or the G-Wagon. You'll have those up there. So they're anchoring their value high, or the Maybach, or whatever it is. So you want to anchor your value high. The other one, which is a very simple technique, which I call the rule of 5, which is if you want something, ask for it at least 5 times. So you say, look, I really would appreciate it, if I had the golf membership, because I've done all my business on the golf course. They say, look, we don't include golf membership. So let it go, talk, chit chat another 15 minutes, then circle back and say, you won't believe who I met. Do you know that I actually met, Warren Buffett on the golf course last year, and he's actually one of my best friends. You won't believe, have you met a lot of VIPs on the golf course? We've got to put golf course as part of our strategy. Don't you think so? And, so I just zip it in and ask yourself 5 times. So the first 3, 4, just count yourself. He said no. Has he said no, or has she said no 5 times? So go for the rule of 5. So how do you figure out your worth? We're running up on time here, so it's 8 minutes. Mm-hmm. So how do I do this in 8 minutes?
We still have a bit of time, so we can go and talk about it. I think it's interesting.
Okay, one of the most mind-blowing things about your worth is that it actually starts inside you, and a lot of people don't realize that. So what actually blew my mind, back many, many years ago when I was, interviewing candidates, and I had a short list of general managers. One was making $250,000, and the highest paid one was making $1.5 million. And these people are all doing the same job. And if you don't believe me, just go and look at anything, any price point for anything in the market, and you'll see 1,000% variance. Whether it's a bottle, you can buy a bottle of water for a dirham, or you can buy the spiritually enhanced volcanic water for $20 a bottle, and that's available. So and water is your basic commodity. Doesn't get any more simpler than water. It's not a big difference. So if water has 1,000% variance, trust me, there's someone doing the exact same job as you are and getting paid 1,000% more. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So what is the difference between this general manager who's doing 1.5 million and the other one who's making 250,000? I think if you go to slide 19, you can see what I'm talking about. And what actually the thing is that when you ask them if you're well paid, the person who is generally people who are reasonably paid or average or below average paid, they feel that they're reasonably paid, or they feel like they're well paid, or they feel like if I got another 20%, I will be well paid. And when you deal with people who are in the top 1%, they constantly don't feel like they're getting paid enough. They always feel underpaid. And so this was a big revelation for me, in that the sense that the person who's making 1.5 million actually felt underpaid, because they would say, oh, well, I brought in the Aramco deal that was worth, $700 million. And my bonus was, only 3 million. Well, I should have got $15 million bonus. So this is how they think. And they're constantly putting that pressure to get a raise, to get an increase, to get a da-da-da-da-da. And other people leave money on the table. So number one is you have to look at how do you view yourself? Do you view yourself as $1 million executive? Do you really feel that you should be getting that extra amount of money? So that's one piece that a lot of people don't want to realize, is that they do not feel like they're worth it. And that takes a lot of courage to say, hey, I have low self-confidence. I have low self-esteem. I need to fix inside before outside changes. The other thing is, if you go to slide 20, so now that's the inside we talked about. Obviously, this is a much broader topic where I would need a whole day with you just to talk about the inside piece, okay? So we don't have that time. So what can you do quickly? So very quickly, immediate, and as I said at the beginning, I hope I'm being true to my word. I said I'm going to give you a lot of tactics that you can use immediately, so I hope that you're getting that. Go to the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, one of my favorite websites, and you have every single job, and this is real data. And why do I say that? Because a lot of the stuff that's flying around in the Middle East is these surveys, and they're totally based on nonsense. And the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics gives gives you the average based on tax paid. So this is real tax receipts. This is real tax audits. This is real data. Now, you have to take it for a grain of salt because that's an average, which means that also includes people who are about to get terminated. It also includes companies that are going out of business. It also includes very small companies. So the average is low. So you should always be careful that when an employer starts using data points and says, hey, here's the average, you know that it's also a way of discounting you, because your performance is not average. You want to perform in the top 10% of your competitors. You can't pay at the 50th percentile. And then there's a bunch of other websites here, Salary, JobStar. You could also go to Glassdoor, Gulf Business, Bait.com. There's so many of them. And what you want to do is get that salary details. One of my candidates went and got the annual reports of the competitors and identified their role because they were a C-level position, and took the salary of the top 10 publicly listed companies and what the compensation is. If I were you as a candidate, I would use what's the highest paid person in the world for your job, and use that in the framing context. So you could say, well, I can't believe with the digital revolution how important marketing has become. And have you seen now that the publicly listed chief marketing officers, their salaries are breaching $15 million a year, and they're becoming some of the highest paid people out there. Now I just dropped that. So now I've picked a data point that's at 15 million. I'm starting to tell you, hey, there's a buzz about my role. You need to pay more. So how are you going to use these data points? And the number one thing I think you should do is identify who are the top 10 highest paid people who do your job in the world. Even if you're an auto mechanic, even if you're a gym. I was talking with my, I know it doesn't look like I work out a lot, but I actually have been to the gym once in a while. And my trainer, she's like massive. She's like an IFBB pro bodybuilder. So she's like just a ball of muscle. And I said, who are the highest paid personal trainers in Dubai? Because they're probably not as qualified as she is, but they're making more money because they're focused on various things, which is, their marketing, their branding, their da-da-da-da-da-da. And so you look at what's the highest paid trainer doing? And you very quickly start to see, a shift in what I call two things: visibility and vision. So, i.e., if I haven't heard of you as a trainer, then I'm not going to pay a premium. But if all of a sudden I have pictures of me with Faza on my website training the prince and training the UAE Olympic team, all of a sudden it goes up. And then vision. Hey, this is what my organization is. It's a growth vision. I'm expanding. I have a really exciting view of where I'm going to be in 5 years from now. It's very attractive. So that's what I call V squared, or your visibility and your vision. These will trump ability. So in fact, what do I say? Well, trump ability. Just if I could just get this last point in here, very important point if you're listening to this. So you will not hire the best trainer. You will hire the trainer with the highest visibility, so that you can see and you can find the very best trainer. They might not be online at all. You won't even know about them. You won't hire them. So that really tells you, if you don't have high visibility, you don't have high vision, how are you going to get a premium?
Yeah, especially in jobs like these.
Yes, so much to talk about in salary negotiation. I really, if you go to ownmycareer.com, we have a salary negotiation course which you can pick up, and we spend a whole, couple weeks with you, ramping you up to it.
Definitely, I think they should visit your website. Can you just repeat that for everyone who's listening?
It's ownmycareer.com, ownmycareer.com, as in you should own it, own your career.
Yes. Shane, thank you so much. This was super informative. This was I think an eye-opener for everyone, because a lot of people know that it's a sensitive topic, so they'd rather not approach it. But there are so many techniques, so many different ways that you could tackle it. And I think it was a very interesting session. Thank you so much. Everyone who's watching us, thank you again for joining. So we had Shane today, who is the CEO of the management consultancy group, the Phillips Group. I'd like to really thank you for your tips, for your time, for your effort today. And thank you to everyone who joined us. And hopefully we will bring you new sessions on career management topics in the future. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Bye.